It was a calm night over Hong Kong. Until it wasn't. The clock had just passed 11 p.m. at one of the busiest airports in Asia. Cargo planes came and went like clockwork, their schedules synchronized down to the minute. But on this night, one flight was about to turn that precision into panic. A massive wide-body cargo jet, inbound from Singapore, lined up with Hong Kong International's Runway 07R. It had completed thousands of such flights before. Its crew, 3 experienced pilots, were nearing the end of an 11-hour journey, ready to touch down, hand over the controls, and rest. But as the jet began its final descent, the weather turned against them. The winds shifted. Crosswinds began pushing from the side, and the runway below glistened faintly under the night lights, slick from earlier rain. To the air traffic controllers in the tower, everything still looked normal. The plane's approach speed was good, alignment steady, descent rate controlled. The call came through. Cleared to land. Runway 07R. The captain acknowledged. The runway lights stretched like a silver ribbon below. A glowing welcome home. But seconds later, everything changed. As the wheels touched down, the aircraft didn't grip the runway. It slid. Seconds later, the massive cargo jet skidded off the runway, slamming into the grassy safety zone beside the tarmac. The sound, metal grinding, engines howling, wheels snapping, was deafening. Then, silence. Emergency sirens blared. Airport fire trucks, ambulances, and rescue units scrambled toward the smoking aircraft. Passengers in the terminal pressed their faces to the glass, watching flashing lights race across the runway. Social media exploded. Videos, photos, speculation. But inside that cockpit, chaos was far from over. The captain took a deep breath. The cockpit filled with smoke and the smell of burnt rubber. The engineer shouted, "Engine 2's down! We've hit something!" The first officer's voice trembled. "We're in the mud!" The captain's instincts kicked in. "Mayday! Mayday! Aircraft off runway! No visible fire! Crew evacuating!" There was no time to think, only to act. The biggest danger wasn't over. In the cargo hold, behind thick metal panels, lay lithium batteries, electronics, and industrial components. Volatile materials that could ignite at the slightest spark. They grabbed flashlights, checked the exterior, and made a call. Evacuate. The crew opened the cockpit hatch, climbing down the emergency ladder into the wet grass. Rain fell lightly as they waved down approaching rescue vehicles. Their faces were streaked with sweat and disbelief. But they were alive. Within minutes, Hong Kong International Airport went into full emergency mode. The runway was closed immediately. Departures were delayed, and inbound flights were diverted to Macau, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen. The entire airport came to a halt. Inside the terminal, passengers whispered nervously as the announcement echoed, "Attention! Due to an incident on the runway, several flights are delayed. We appreciate your patience." On social media, rumors began flying faster than any airplane could. Cargo explosion at Hong Kong. Plane crash near terminal. Terror attack? But officials quickly clarified. No explosion, no casualties. A cargo aircraft had simply skidded off the runway during landing. The crew was safe. Still, the questions were immediate. How could this happen in Hong Kong, a world leader in aviation safety? The next morning, the scene at the airport looked surreal. A colossal cargo aircraft sat stranded just meters from the runway, its landing gear buried deep in mud. The left engine hung dangerously close to the ground. Trucks, cranes, and investigators surrounded it like surgeons around a patient. The city woke up to the headlines, "Cargo jet skids off runway in Hong Kong. Crew safe. Investigation underway." But behind that calm headline was a much bigger story. Investigators from Hong Kong's Civil Aviation Department arrived before sunrise. They began marking tire tracks, photographing skid marks, and measuring every meter of deviation from the runway's center line. Then came the recovery of the black boxes, the cockpit voice recorder, and flight data recorder. What they discovered later would explain everything. The data showed that the aircraft hit a crosswind gust of 27 knots, just beyond its certified limit for a wet runway. In those final seconds before touchdown, the pilots were fighting wind shear, shifting air currents that made the aircraft unstable. When the wheels touched down, the left main gear hit first, causing uneven pressure on the wings. The anti-skid systems kicked in, but the wet surface offered almost no friction. The thrust reversers deployed slightly late, reducing their effectiveness. In simple terms, the plane touched down too hard, too off-center, and too late. It wasn't one big mistake. It was a chain of small, interconnected ones. But there was another factor: fatigue. The pilots had been in the cockpit for nearly 11 hours. Due to delays earlier in Singapore, they'd already exceeded their original duty time. Fatigue slows reaction times, clouds judgment, and makes even simple decisions harder. When the captain considered a go-around, they were already descending too low. By the time he pushed the throttles forward, the wheels were already on the ground, and the fate of the flight was sealed. That's the cruel truth of aviation. Sometimes you realize the mistake just 1 second too late. As the investigation continued, crews worked non-stop to recover the aircraft. Massive cranes lifted it inch by inch back onto solid ground. Engineers drained the remaining fuel, inspected the structure, and secured the cargo. For nearly 18 hours, one of Asia's most efficient airports was paralyzed. Dozens of flights canceled. Thousands of passengers stranded. But no lives lost. When the final report came out weeks later, the findings were clear: excessive landing speed, unstable approach, crosswind gusts beyond safety limits, fatigue, and poor runway friction. Each factor alone was manageable. Together, they created disaster. The investigators didn't just stop at the technical explanation. They went deeper into the culture of overwork in cargo aviation. Cargo pilots often operate at night with long hours and minimal rest. Unlike passenger airlines, cargo schedules don't always prioritize fatigue management. And since these flights happen while most people sleep, the risks often go unnoticed until something goes wrong. The Hong Kong incident became a warning to the industry. No delivery deadline, no schedule, no profit is worth risking safety. For Hong Kong itself, the incident was a test of resilience. Known as one of the busiest and best-managed airports in the world, it had never faced such a close call in recent memory. Yet, within days, the damaged aircraft was moved. The runway reopened, and operations resumed with astonishing efficiency. Experts called for better runway surface maintenance, updated friction sensors, improved weather forecasting, and stricter rest regulations for night flights. Airlines quietly reviewed their own schedules. In a world obsessed with speed and efficiency, the Hong Kong incident served as a pause button. A reminder that aviation is not just about profit, but precision and humanity. For Hong Kong International, the recovery was swift. Within days, cargo operations returned to full swing. The stranded aircraft, once a symbol of failure, was eventually repaired, repainted, and, months later, took off again on a routine flight to Tokyo. It was poetic. The same jet that had nearly destroyed a runway was once again cruising safely above the clouds. That night changed the crew forever. They didn't just walk away from a near crash. They carried the memory of every sound, every vibration, every alarm that blared during those fateful seconds. And for the aviation community, it became a lesson written in fire and rain. No matter how modern the technology, no matter how experienced the pilots, nature and fatigue will always test the limits. As aviation journalist once said after covering the story, it wasn't luck that saved them. It was training and humility. The humility to accept that even at the cutting edge of human achievement, we're still vulnerable to error, exhaustion, and weather. Hong Kong's cargo plane skid didn't end in tragedy, but it easily could have. And that's what makes it unforgettable. Because aviation isn't just about takeoffs and landings, it's about the invisible moments in between, when the line between control and catastrophe blurs, and the people inside the cockpit decide which way the story ends. So next time you see a cargo jet flying over the city lights, remember, the night one of them came down too fast, too hard, and too late. And how, through training, teamwork, and sheer will, the crew turned disaster into survival. That's the real story of the Hong Kong cargo plane that dangerously skidded off the runway. A close call that reminded the world why aviation safety is written not just in manuals, but in moments of human courage. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. What do you think caused the loss of control? The crosswind, fatigue, or something deeper? Drop your thoughts below. And as always, this is Nilo Airspace, where every flight tells a story. And sometimes, the most powerful stories come from the ones that almost didn't land.